With the NBA draft underway and done and wrapped up, we now head to one of the most interesting times in the offseason, and that is free agency. Because as you can see already around the NBA, we've seen trades goes down, and this is before NBA free agency officially opens up. That opens up on the 30th, which is 4 days away, but we are in now the season where Bulls can will and deal. Trades can get made, those type of things can happen, and we're going to see how active the Bulls can be. One of the talking points a lot of Bulls fans have brought up this offseason is taking on salary from other teams. And with the Bulls already taking on Nic Claxton, if they were to do that, it kind of means that they aren't going to make big swings in free agency. So in today's episode, I want to talk about the players that realistically the Bulls can go after in trade markets and absorb into their salary. We're talking about 3 different tiers of acquisitions. We're talking about players that help the Bulls, that the Bulls may have to give up assets, the matching salary, the semi-contract dump-offs, and then the flat-out players that teams are just looking to dump off because they don't want that money on their books. So we're talking about the players and the options there. Let's talk about how hard it's going to be to crack the Chicago Bulls rotation for a few players in this upcoming season. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We've got to go again to 50,000 subscribers by the start of the 2026-27 season, which is a lofty goal. We're still about 17,000 away from getting to that, but hey, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. About 40-something% of you guys that watch the channel every single day have not hit the subscribe button yet. Hit that subscribe button. In exchange for that, I'll be giving you guys the best daily Chicago Bulls content you're going to find on podcasts or on YouTube. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into it. So a lot has been made. As I said in the opening, there's a lot of talk around, and it's been around the offseason of the Bulls taking on money. Some mainly have talked about taking on bad money from around the league to stack draft assets. Even though I do think teams are going to be more protective of their draft assets with the new tanking rules and the new the restrictions on how you can protect picks. You can't protect them in the same way that you used to. Only top 10 protected now. So because of that, I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as what some Bulls fans initially were talking about with just taking on bad money, stacking draft picks. You're not going to do it the same way that like an OKC Thunder did it, right? Like even though it wasn't just stacking assets by taking on money, but like that's the common team that everybody goes to compare. So I want to talk about the different levels, right? So we have 3 different tiers of it. We have players that help the Bulls flat out, right? Near cap targets, right? That requiring taking salary back. And then also with the flat out players that teams are looking to dump off so that they can have more flexibility in either re-signing players that they want to keep or in the case that they want to go after some free agent targets. I don't have a lot of names on that list because I do think some of that has already been taken up by some teams, but we do have a list in each of those things. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I want to start off with the list of players that actually help bring something to the Chicago Bulls. And the first player that I have on this list is Lu Dort. He has a $17.7 million contract with the OKC Thunder, right? And he fits the mold of having a point of attack defender. Can guard in the perimeter, can guard in the paint. And there's been some back and forth conversation on if the Thunder are actually looking to move off of Lu Dort. Some of the moves that they've already made could point to they're trying to keep both Lu Dort and Isaiah Hartenstein, but it's still going to be very tight with them with the tax there, right? And so because of that, you know, a player like Lu Dort who could help get them below the second tax apron almost by himself alone, they sit right now at $28 million over the second tax apron. You trade a player like Lu Dort with a $17 million contract, which is a team option, so they can opt out of it, and the Bulls can try to go after him in the free agent market if they decide to do so. But if the Bulls were to make a call and they get information that the Thunder may feel like they're going to opt out of that Lu Dort contract, the Bulls can say, listen, we don't want to have to negotiate in free agency. We want his bird rights as well. We'll take him on. And that's an option for the Bulls. I think, Lu Dort is also a good player for Dailyn Swain to play behind and learn behind. Now, I think Swain has way more offensive upside than what Lu Dort has shown in the NBA, or at least been able to show. But I do think that's a player that definitely helps the Bulls. He can play multiple positions, the 2, the 3. He can guard 1 through 4 on the court as well. He brings a lot. Another player on the Thunder that also fits that as well is Isaiah Joe. Isaiah Joe, $11.3 million contract. When you look at the benefit that Isaiah Joe will bring to this team, elite movement. The movement, the catch and shoot ability, Bulls need shooting. And that's one thing that we are definitely lacking on this team right now is the shooting aspect of things. And so Lu Dort could definitely, I mean, not Lu Dort, Isaiah Joe could bring some of that for the Chicago Bulls. And he's also one of those players that I'd be willing to bet on. I think that with more responsibility and asked to do more, I think Isaiah Joe could do a lot. Now, the Bulls are probably going to have to give up assets in this tier that we're talking about. So this isn't, we're just taking on bad money. Lu Dort, you could probably get away with that. Maybe throw out a second-round pick or something like that. But, in the case of Isaiah Joe, this is a player that they still, I think, have some level of investment in. He averaged 11 points per game for them last year, 6'4", 165 pounds, which that can't be right anymore. Like, Isaiah Joe has to be more than 165 pounds at this point. That's ESPN's weight. But you look at him, two back-to-back seasons of averaging in double figures as well. He's a career 40% three-point shooter. That helps the Bulls a lot. His catch and shoot ability, he doesn't need a lot of shots to be effective. He averaged 11 points off 7.5 shots per game last year. So that's a player that fits in. He doesn't take away with what you need from the players you actually need to develop. He helps support it, but still being a youngish player himself at 26, again, I'd be willing to invest in that, and the Bulls can determine if Isaiah Joe is somebody that they want to keep around long-term in that. Another player, and these players are players that have been rumored to be available to some varying degrees. Wendell Carter is another player that's there. With the Orlando Magic getting Sean Sweeney, they're probably going to end up keeping him, right? This is a guy that can pass, can set screens, he can rebound. He provides a little bit of spacing as well. I know he's a former Bull, but I do think that with Orlando and where they are, getting expensive with the Bane and Suggs money and stuff like that, Wendell Carter's a player that could be available. Now, I do think you're going to have to give up something. I don't think that this is just a player you're just going to absorb in the salary, send a couple of seconds. They're going to probably want something for him, and they should, right? Another player that fits in that mold as well is Jarrett Allen. Now, we've heard some varying degrees of Jarrett Allen's and his availability, but reportedly, where the Cleveland Cavaliers are right now is that they could be looking to change up their roster some. Now, the problem with this is if they move Jarrett Allen, it's probably going to be for a star, right? And that's just the reality, or in a much bigger trade. But the Bulls have identified Jarrett Allen as somebody who fits the Bulls' talent very much so, the rim protection, the rebounding, the vertical finishing. I know they just traded for Nic Claxton, but if Jarrett Allen is somebody that's available, the Bulls have to at least call, right? And I'd love to see that, right? You have Claxton, you have that there, so you may be perfectly comfortable. But hearing kind of rumblings that Jarrett Allen could be available, I would love to see the Chicago Bulls make a call on it at least. And then the last two players on this list, you have Jonathan Isaac at $14.5 million, the defensive upside that he has, the length, the weak side rim protection. He fits the Bryson Graham profile as far as skill set. The problem is that Jonathan Isaac is a player you're either going to not have to play a lot of minutes, or he's probably going to get injured and miss some time there. But much like we talked about with Wendell, the Orlando Magic looking to change some things up, bring some things, differently to that team. Jonathan Isaac could be a player that they look to move off of without you, and it could be a low barrier of entry for you to get him on your boards. On your roster. And I think that, for a player that can guard 1 through 5, Jonathan Isaac he's turned himself into one of the better point of attack defenders in the league. But, he's played over 70 games twice. And last year was 52 games and he averaged 10 minutes. So it may not be a sensible fit there, but he is somebody that could be available. It could fit that mold of somebody that you can add that can help, but you also don't have to give up much for him. And then lastly on this list is Isaiah Hartenstein. I know we just got Nic Claxton, but to me, if Isaiah Hartenstein is still available, you go after Isaiah Hartenstein. The screener, the rebounder, the fact that he doesn't need a lot of shots, he absolutely fits the type of mold that Tiago Splitter likes. But I do think that, you got Nic Claxton, so you don't have to be desperate for it. But I still keep an ear out, I should say, to hear about, Isaiah Hartenstein and what the Thunder plan on doing. But I think they plan on keeping him, even with them getting a DeMar. I think they're still planning on keeping Isaiah Hartenstein. All right, let's get to the next tier of players, right? These are teams that are near the cap, right? And so you may have to send something back, right? But this are players that are clean in that absorption line of absorbing their contract and their money here. Number one, Dejounte Murray. And I know, listen, Dejounte Murray is still somebody who can get a near triple-double. He's still a solid enough defender. He's coming off an injury. The Pelicans seem to be ready to move off of him. He also seems to be ready to get out of the Pelicans, area there. I would only go after or take back Dejounte Murray if you're the third team in the trade and that team the Pelicans are trading with just don't want to take on Dejounte Murray's contract. I'm not necessarily against taking it. Now, we don't have the most cleanest fit there for him. Could he start at the 2? Technically, right? Like we've seen him play at the 2 a lot before. And I do think with his ability to space the floor a little bit, could him and Josh Giddey actually be a solid enough backcourt? And that way, Dailyn Swain learning behind Dejounte Murray for a season, I'm not necessarily mad at either, right? The shooting fit that he is why I'm really looking at there. A bigger guard, he can create. He has really good half-court offense as well, where the Bulls do lack at. Dejounte Murray is definitely somebody that I think you'd want to take on. The next player in this list is Cameron Johnson. Shout out to my boy Von Savon, not Alt Von that leaves the crazy voicemails, but Savon. He's brought this guy up a lot over the last few months. Now, the thing with Cam Jones is, and we'll talk about this when we get into the rotation minutes, is that the Bulls' forward rotation is going to be very difficult to crack, right? Now, the Nuggets, they do want to keep Peyton Watson, and that's why Cam Johnson would be available for in a case like that. And I'm not necessarily mad against it. He's a physical, forward. He's smart. He's older than the Bulls core. And so you would literally just be helping Denver out. Now, Denver doesn't have a lot of tradable assets. So my question is that what would they be giving us, right? That would be my ultimate question in regards to that. We're helping Denver keep Peyton Watson, a player that we could actually try to pursue in free agency. If we're helping them keep him, you got to give up something. And the Denver Nuggets don't have a tradable first-round pick until 2033, I believe. Now, that could actually work out. Right now, I know Bulls fans are going to want something now, something tangible now. But by 2033, is Nikola Jokic even going to still be Jokic? Like, are the Denver Nuggets even still going to be good? They're already on the downturn. Young teams in the West, like the Rockets, the Spurs, the OKC Thunder, have already passed them up. The Minnesota Timberwolves are consistently beating them up too. So this is a team that, by 2033, they could be all the way down to the fact that they just aren't that good of a team anymore. And therefore, that could actually be a really good premium pick. But if I'm taking on Cam Johnson's contract, it can be off, especially if it's off to 2033. I need it to be unprotected. I need it to be unprotected. I don't even want a top 10 protected pick. It has to be unprotected. If you do that and we take on the money and allow you to keep your young player in Peyton Watson, then yeah, you got to run us those picks, my boy. Run us those picks, being an unprotected first-round pick. So let's see if that's something that actually happens. I know that's me and my Bulls homer dism coming out a little bit, but I think that Cam Johnson actually fits that mold a little bit that the Bulls could take back. All right, let's get into the next tier of players. And these are players that are just straight up salary dumps that really these players don't really offer the Bulls much value, but the Bulls will be taking on the money to help facilitate another deal or help alleviate their cap sum straight up. 2 players. I only have 2 players on this list. And more can get added to it. Kind of waiting to see where the teams are going to go. No, Ja Morant is not on this list. For some Bulls fans, they're going to ask that. No, he's not on the list. But players that I have on this is DeMar DeRozan, number 1. $25 million contract. Sacramento is already trying to pivot and focus on their youth. They want to clear out the bad money that they can. They do not want DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. We can't absorb Zach LaVine's contract or else he would probably be on this list too. But DeMar DeRozan is definitely a player that we can. He's played in Chicago. I do think he's a veteran that brings some good veteran leadership as well. The problem with bringing on DeMar DeRozan is that if you're going to play him, you kind of have to commit to playing DeMar DeRozan ball. And, that's just the reality to it. Now, I would say this, if we trade for DeMar, don't come in here thinking you're going to start. Even at the 2, you're going to have to come off the bench, my boy, period. And then your job coming off the bench is, do your thing where you score and you do some of that, but you're facilitating. We want you facilitating for our young guys, for Noah Essengay, for the Leonard Millers. We want you facilitating to those guys to help them alleviate them in the minutes that we play development minutes for them. And then also you do bring some of that half-court creation that the Bulls do need. But DeMar DeRozan is not the target to the saying that DeMar as a player is so big on what we need as a player or anything like that. It's just to flat out say hey, we can help the Sacramento Kings alleviate some of that, but flat out, don't be looking for DeMar. Don't be looking to come here and the team be built around you because that's not what we're doing, my boy. And then also have Jakob Poeltl here from the Toronto Raptors. He has a $19 million contract, and at this point, Jakob is just not a good player. The injuries have stacked up for him. The Toronto Raptors are trying to make a big swing. We've heard that Kawhi Leonard would be open to signing an extension if he's traded there, but they seem to be going big fish hunting. And I do think that they're going to need a third team to help facilitate that a little bit because teams aren't going to there could be a team that's willing to take back Jakob Poeltl's contract, but if they don't have to and the Bulls can play the third team and take on that and still have a little bit of money to do some other things with, I'm all for that, right? But somebody in that trade, whether it's the third team or the Toronto Raptors, you got to send us a pick. Run us that pick. You got to do that part of it. But if that's open and they're open to doing that, I'd be more than happy and willing to facilitate that deal and take up Jakob Poeltl's contract as and take on the dead money there, basically, because that's basically what it is. And unfortunately, though, he has 4 years left on his deal. And the money just goes up. While it's 19 and a half now, it goes up to 27.3 and 29.30. That's the part of this that I think I don't know if Bryson Graham's going to want to do that. To take on that much long-term money, it'd be different if it was a 1 or 2 year deal expiring. One of the things that I have for the Bulls is do not sign long-term bad money if you can avoid it. That's one thing that I have in here. Do not take on the long-term bad money if you can avoid it. And that's what you have to do. So, but he is somebody that is out there. Could be somebody that the Bulls could have to take on for that. But again, if we're taking on 4 more years of Jakob Poeltl's contract, run us a unprotected pick and maybe even some seconds in regards to that too. So that's the list that I have. I'd love to hear you guys and other players that you have on the list as well. But that's my list. I'd love to hear your list. With that said, right, going on, I want to talk about the minutes crunch, right? Because I think a lot of Bulls fans don't really understand how much there's going to be a battle for minutes, specifically at the forward position. So I have a list of players here that are going to find a very hard time to meaningfully crack the Bulls rotation next year. Number 1, Leonard Miller. Now, I do think that Leonard Miller for this, I think that I have him. So it's ranked. It's not ranked in like who's going to have the hardest time. These are just players, right? But Leonard Miller, while he did flash some things, and some Bulls fans are ready to say, oh my God, Leonard Miller absolutely has to be part of the rebuild. And I got in a conversation with somebody in the comments one time, he's a 1A on this team. He has to be in tier 1. We have to get him minutes. And unfortunately, that's just not true. Now, I do think the minutes are going to be there for him, right? And I do think it's going to come down to him and Noah Essegibo, but let's just talk about it. You have 96 forward minutes on this team. Miles Buzelis is getting 28 to 30. Caleb Wilson, as a rookie, is probably getting 20 to 25-ish, right? Maybe as high as 28. We don't know like what's happening there, but they're getting the lion's shares of the minutes, right? So let's just talk about that there. You still got Jalen Smith on this team, who's going to be getting a lot of minutes, right? He's going to be getting minutes, but as of right now, he's probably going to be playing some center too. But I expect the Bulls to bring in an actual backup center. He's been better playing at the 4. But you have Modest, you have Caleb as your starters. You then have Jalen Smith, you have Noah Essegibo, you have Leonard Miller battling it out. Now, I'm not saying that he's not going to be into the rotation, but for consistent minutes, it could get a bit tough there. Dailyn Swain is also going to play some forward minutes as well. He's going to play some of the 3, right? So that's what you have on this team. Now, if Noah Essegibo ends up playing some center, I don't really know if he's ready for that. It alleviates that some too. Maybe you play some of these guys at small ball center, but Leonard Miller is definitely going to have it. The problem is not talent. It's role clarity. That's what it's going to come down to. He's going to have to clearly be a better defender, rebounder, cutter, and shooter than the other developmental forwards that are ahead of him, and that's what you have in regards to that. And because he has they could opt out of the contract. They better not. I think they're going to pick that option up. But he's going to have to defend multiple spots, rebound, run the floor, make open threes if he wants that. Next up, Patrick Williams and Rob Dillingham. These 2 guys could not be in the rotation at all. Patrick Williams, let's take it, throw it away. Let me not say no way. I know there's still that segment of Bulls fans that hope, oh my God, Thiago can unlock P. Will. And I get that. And like I said before, it's no problem rooting for players on your team. But I think when you just look at the reality of it, the players that we talked about, Modest, Caleb Wilson, Dailyn Swain, Noah Essegibo, Leonard Miller, these guys all are probably going to be ahead of Patrick Williams in the rotation. That's 5 forwards. Now, some of those guys like Swain is going to play some shooting guard too, right? So you have that. Other players are going to play multiple forward positions. But I think that, even with Pat making a $19 million contract, this front office has no emotional attachment to his draft spot. They have no attachment to him or any of these guys for that matter. And Patrick Williams' path to minutes is going to have to be being actually consistent for once, right? Rob Dillingham. I think that Rob Dillingham is going to have to show, especially on this team that is going to need half-court creation and shooting, he's going to have to show he can do that consistently. Trey Jones is going to be ahead of him. Josh Giddey is definitely going to be ahead of him. He can't play the 2, right? Like, I think at this point now, we're overplaying small players at the 2, and even then, Trey Jones is probably going to take precedence there. Rob Dillingham is going to have to show and fight a lot in training camp to earn consistent minutes on this team. There's just no way around that. And we'll see if he ends up doing that. So Rob Dillingham, the shooting and the creation, which I was really impressed with his passing last year, he's going to have to show that in a very consistent manner if he's going to want to be on this Bulls rotation a lot this year. Noah Essegibo. Again, I know that he's a draft pick of last year, but this front office didn't make that draft selection. He's very young, very raw, and I think that, now he has more players in his lane than he had before. Long, developmental, athlete players with defensive upside and has to work in rounding out offense, right? Now, the benefit of Noah Essegibo that he brings, his rim protection is good. His how he goes after rebounds is really good. He can live off putbacks and catching lobs. That's going to be his path to minutes right away, is how much do you bring in those areas where you don't need a lot of shots, therefore your offense is fluid in there. The transition running, the cutting, making simple reads, that's the path for him there. I think that, he can't have a path to minutes, but he's going to have to fight it. And then Jalen Smith as well as a player there, because now you have younger players that Bulls may prioritize their development over playing Jalen Smith. And that's just the reality of it. But with us being a team that's still going to try to win basketball games, I think that but Caleb Wilson is going to be ahead of him now. Modest Buzelis is ahead of him, right? Those other guys, Leonard Miller, Noah Estingay, the guys that we mentioned, they're going to be trying to fight for that. The benefit of Jalen right now is that he can play center, even though I don't think he's been best at center. But with that said, he can play that center, so that's going to help him. That stretch big, he's going to have to shoot consistently. Keep the floor open for the Giddey, Wilson, Swain to get to work with, and that's going to be there. Tre Jones, I think that Tre Jones is a player as well that could get caught up in the numbers game. Now, we know that Billy Donovan loved playing Tre Jones, and the former front office loved Tre Jones. Tiago Splitter, with how Tre Jones plays defense, I do think he can try to use him in similar ways to how he used Drew Holiday with that Portland Trailblazers team. So there's there. We also don't have a lot of point of attack defenders. Tre Jones can defend the point of attack. So with Tiago Splitter wanting stability, I think that he's going to have that path to minutes. His low turnover, high production, as far as creating offense, is also going to be good for developing the players that don't create their own shot best quite yet. I think that Tre's going to get into that and be perfectly fit for the Bulls there. But I do think that, if guys like Rob Dillingham do start showing something, it could be. And then the newly acquired Cam Jones, I think is going to have a difficult go at it. If the Bulls even keep him on the roster, he has a non-guaranteed deal. The Bulls can opt out at a certain date, not have to pay that full contract. If they are bringing on players that they want to use more, I think that he may not even make the roster. And then Isaac Okoro as well. Now, Okoro is going to be interesting because right now, Okoro is probably slated to be our starting two guard, even though I would rather start Dailyn Swain there. I think they have similar defensive profiles, with Dailyn Swain having a way higher offensive ceiling when it comes down to that one. If Swain becomes a day one starter, the minutes at that point become very tough for Isaac Okoro. That's just it. And so a lot of this really does determine by, hey, what else the Bulls do in free agency? Because do they go after like a Quentin Grimes or somebody like that? But other than that, I think you're looking at Isaac Okoro. It's going to be a tough path for minutes there for him. And I know my boy C-Ray Fred loves Isaac Okoro, but he may have a tough path to minutes. I think the players with the easiest path to minutes are the ones that we know are Josh Giddey, primary organizing starting point guard. Modest Buzelis, your young key forward that you're going to try to develop as a two-way player. Caleb Wilson, Dailyn Swain are definitely going to be in the rotation. Both may start. Nic Claxton's your starting center. He's going to be there. Those five players are going to be definitely in the rotation. And that's not to say other players definitely aren't going to be in the rotation, but I think their minutes are kind of set. Other players are going to be fighting off minutes based off who developed, who hasn't, and then that rotation battle that we're going to watch. The forward wing rotation is going to be one of the most deepest one to watch. We're going to, in those forward wing minutes, you're going to have Modest, Caleb, Dailyn Swain, Noah Estingay, Leonard Miller, Isaac Okoro. You can even throw Patrick Williams' name in there, even though I don't think he's going to play a lot. You got 7 players fighting over 96 minutes. That's it. So we'll see what's going to happen there. And then the backup point guard could be a camp battle as well, even though I don't have the biggest faith in Rob Dillingham, but it could end up being a camp battle. So we'll see, right? So the players that are going to be fighting and have to really compete for those minutes are players that we mentioned: Leonard Miller, Noah Estingay, Cam Jones, Tre Jones, Jalen Smith, Isaac Okoro, depending on the shooting situations and stuff like that. But hey, competition usually gives you an opportunity to get the best out of your roster. And we'll see if that's what happens with the Chicago Bulls here. Let's hope so. But the Bulls' new direction, it puts pressure on on older players. And now we got to see now. I've said it before, about 30% of your minutes need to go to veteran players. That's about 100 minutes. So other than that, a lot of these minutes are going to go to these younger guys, and I think that's exactly where we need to be as a franchise. But you guys can let me know how you feel on that part down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, man. The only thing I want to say before we get out of here is that there are a lot of Bulls fans that reacted after the Bulls traded their second round picks. Sold off pick number 56, ended up trading pick number 38. Bryson Graham had a great explanation on that the guys that were left on the board weren't guys that they had on their board, right? And that's it. And I think that like, while there's a lot of conspiracy theories around that and stuff, that it triggers some things with old Bulls fans, and I get all that, right? I think at the end of the day is that you want to trust the person that you brought in to evaluate talent. That's the reality. And that's what they did. So in regards to that, I'm going to leave that part there. But Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you guys, I want to hear you guys sound off down below. What are some trade targets you would go after for the Chicago Bulls? Who do you think is going to have the most difficult path to minutes ahead for the Chicago Bulls? And then also, I want to make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or an upload. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of Breaks.